Jack Reacher director and actors talk car chases, and casting crews adapting a novel for the big screen is surely no easy task. But Christopher McQuarrie, the Academy Award-winning screenwriter of The Usual Suspects, was up for the challenge when it came to Jack Reacher. His take as both writer and director is of one particular book, One Shot, the 9th novel in author Lee Child's beloved thriller series. The project sees McQuarrie paired again with star and producer Tom Cruise, with whom he worked on Valkyrie, Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, and the upcoming All You Need Is Kill. The casting decision was a controversial one with fans. Reacher is essentially the physical opposite of Cruise, but McQuarrie and Child have insisted the essence of the character is intact. Consider also the accomplished supporting actors Werner Herzog as villain the Zek, Rosamund Pike as tireless lawyer Helen, David Oyelowo as Reacher's cop counterpart, Richard Jenkins as Helen's district attorney father, and Robert Duvall as the surly owner of a local shooting range. And it's clear McQuarrie's take is inspired. The director was joined by Child, Pike, and Oyelowo at a recent press conference in New York City, where they discussed the controversy of casting a very different-looking Reacher, Herzog's epic performance and on-set demeanor, the logistics of filming the movie's main car chase sequence, and Cruise's insistence that he do all his own stunts. McQuarrie on how he came to adapt the screenplay, direct the film, and cast Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher. Don Granger, the producer of the movie, brought me the book, which he'd been working on for a few years before I came aboard, and asked me to write and direct it. I did an adaptation, and because Lee is a very cinematic writer, it's a very straightforward adaptation. We gave it to Tom Cruise in his capacity as a producer, and he read the script and called back and said, "I don't know who you have in mind to play this character, but I'd love to do it." So the other producer, Tom, turned around and hired Tom. What drew Pike to the role of Helen? Reacher's a guy who rocks into town, and he does things differently than everybody else. In any sort of normal social interaction, he just doesn't behave properly. And so Helen is left sort of startled at every turn by his mode of operation. What interested me about her is that she's a good lawyer. She's a competent, accomplished lawyer, but she hasn't got the brilliance of Reacher, and that drives her mad. It's like she's a girl who's good at maths, and she meets a mathematician. I think Tom and I had a very easy chemistry. It wasn't anything we had to work on. Oyelowo, on playing Reacher's counterpart Emerson, one of my first interactions outside of the script with Jack Reacher and the film was meeting Chris McQuarrie at a hotel in Los Angeles. And one of the things we talked about was the fact that he needed, in whoever played Emerson, someone who was a genuine counterpoint to Jack Reacher. One of the things I have an allergic reaction to playing, especially as a black actor, is the mandatory best friend / cop / detective type. You'll never see me in that movie. Al McQuarrie tapped Werner Herzog to play the film's villain, the Zek. That was entirely the doing of casting director Mindy Marin. When we first sat down and talked about the role, I gave her my list of criteria, the main ones being that I wanted someone European and unknown to a wider audience. And the first name out of her mouth was Werner Herzog, which I thought was an inspired idea. But we would obviously never get Werner Herzog. And a week later, I was on the phone with Werner Herzog, who was actually very excited about playing the role, and suddenly I had huge doubts about it. I was worried that he was too unfamiliar, and he was going to feel like a documentary character in a Tom Cruise movie. So I vacillated on it for quite a while, and I was talking to Tom about it, and Tom said, "It's Werner Herzog, man. I don't understand. Just hire the guy." In 2012, Lee Child's iconic character Jack Reacher leaped off the page and onto the big screen, a thrilling adaptation that brought the beloved drifter to life with an explosive mix of action and intrigue. At the heart of the conversation surrounding the movie, however, were two things: the mind-blowing car chase sequences and the controversial casting of Tom Cruise in the titular role. Fans of the novel were intrigued, even skeptical, about how the movie would portray Reacher's physicality and larger-than-life presence. As the dust settled, what became clear was that both the casting and the car chases brought a fresh, dynamic energy to the film. The filmmakers and actors involved, especially Cruise and director Christopher McQuarrie, knew they were pushing boundaries, and they embraced every challenge. Casting Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher. When the news first broke that Tom Cruise had been cast as Jack Reacher, fans of the novels were taken aback. In the books, Reacher is described as a hulking figure 6'5", 250 pounds, and an imposing presence that fills a room. Cruz, by comparison, is much smaller in stature, standing at 5'7". This physical disparity initially caused a ripple of controversy. But Christopher McQuarrie, who directed Jack Reacher, had a different vision in mind. McQuarrie saw in Cruz the essence of Reacher, beyond the physical attributes. He believed Cruz could embody the quiet intensity, intelligence, and sheer willpower that defined Reacher in the books. In interviews, McQuarrie discussed how Cruz's versatility and understanding of complex characters made him a natural fit for the role. What Reacher represents is a man who doesn't need to shout or puff his chest to command attention, McQuarrie explained. His power comes from within, from his ability to analyze a situation, act swiftly, and move on. That's something Tom excels at, playing characters with depth and hidden strength. For Cruz, the challenge of playing Reacher was a welcome one. He dove headfirst into preparing for the role, focusing on capturing Reacher's stoic demeanor and brutal efficiency. Cruz was no stranger to action-heavy roles, but Reacher required a particular sense of controlled menace. Reacher is a man of few words, but when he speaks or acts, it's definitive, Cruz said in an interview. I wanted to bring that calm but dangerous energy to him. Despite the initial fan concerns, Cruz won many over with his dedication to portraying Reacher's tactical mind and no-nonsense approach to justice. While his portrayal might have differed from the Reacher fans envisioned, there was no denying the intensity he brought to the role. McQuarrie summed it up best. It was never about matching the exact physical image of Reacher from the books. It was about bringing his soul and his essence to the screen, and Tom nailed that. The art of the car chase. One of the most unforgettable sequences in Jack Reacher is the heart-pounding car chase through the streets of Pittsburgh. In a film packed with tension, this chase stood out for its raw, unfiltered approach. Unlike many modern action movies that rely heavily on CGI and fast-cut editing, McQuarrie opted for a more old-school approach, grounding the chase in practical stunts and gritty realism. The result was a visceral, edge-of-your-seat sequence that captured the intensity of Reacher's relentless pursuit of justice. McQuarrie knew that this car chase had to feel different from typical Hollywood fare. I wanted the audience to feel every bump, every swerve, every gear shift, he explained. There's something about a chase that's real, something that's not polished to perfection. It makes you lean in. To achieve this, they focused on minimal CGI, using real cars and real driving for the majority of the scene. The decision to keep the action grounded in reality paid off, giving the sequence a raw, almost primal energy. And of course, Tom Cruise, well known for doing many of his own stunts, was right there in the driver's seat. Cruise trained extensively for the sequence, determined to perform as much of the driving himself as possible. Tom is fearless when it comes to stunts, McQuarrie said. He wants to feel what the character feels in those moments. It's not enough for him to act like he's driving, he has to be driving. The technical execution of the chase was challenging, with precise choreography required between the cars, the stunt team, and the cameras. Cruise's dedication to authenticity elevated the scene, as the audience could see him behind the wheel, gripping the steering wheel with white-knuckled determination. In interviews, Cruise reflected on the adrenaline of filming those scenes. There's a certain flow to it when you're in the car, feeling the speed and making those turns, he said. It's thrilling, and it adds to the performance when you're actually in control. Bringing Reacher to life through action